Hey everyone, Miranda Pitrone back here with you with the stencils from Zendati, and I'm going to try this one this evening on a canvas that I have painted in matte black. And I centered it on my canvas here, and all I did was take my etching tool and scratch into the black background the design. So you can use pencil or chalk or any of those to put your design down, and you will end up with the stencil on your canvas. So I just need to pick a color palette here that I'm going to use for this, and we will get started. Hey everybody, Miranda Pitrone back here with you to do another video. I am going to use another one of the stencils that I received from Aurora Davidson over at Zendati. She has given me quite a few to try out. We did one for the breast cancer video, but then I'm going to try this one tonight on canvas. And I'm just deciding on a color palette, but while I'm doing that, I'll just show you I centered my stencil here on my canvas. And I didn't have to tape it down or anything. It's decently heavy, but it's also kind of grips on one side. You'll feel that it's a little bit raised, and it stays in place while I'm tracing. So that's another bonus. All I did was take my etching tool, and you can take your pencil or chalk or whatever it is that you use to use your stencils, excuse me. And I just etched into the background of my black matte paint the stencil design, and I came out with it looking like this. So like I said, I'm just going to pick out my color palette here. I'm trying to decide which colors I'd like to use for this canvas, and we will get started. Okay, I think I'm going to go with a mix of earthy colors, kind of like the seed of life type idea from the dirt growing into greens with interspersed metallics. It's my vague plan for now. So I'm going to start off in the center with chocolate, which is one of the multi-surface dazzling metallics from Decoart. I don't tend to use stencils very often, but I think they are probably like any tool where the more you use it, the more practiced you get at it, the easier it becomes, and you won't have to think through it as much. And I think too, for a lot of people, having guidelines is really helpful, for especially if you're just starting out. So I'm testing this one out here. You can do this. This is kind of like the seed of life design, so you would do it with a compass, doing the multiple circles. So this kind of saves you all that compass work and all the measuring, which I think is very helpful, especially if people are not used to using compasses as a tool as well. So, okay, I'm going to continue with the chocolate and do below, above, and rather than the 8, so you normally do a plus sign with a lot of mandalas, this design is just going to be the 6. So you're going off at the 45-degree angle, but you have the guidelines here to help you too, so that you can help keep your symmetry and your spacing. Now thinking of this, there's actually a lot of different ways that you could use this. You could extend the lines of the stencil and then trace the lines, so then you have an outline. You can dot the lines with outlining, or you could use them as guidelines to kind of follow in. So it's kind of a multi-purpose tool, which you can use different ways. I think too I'm going to continue using the dotting tools for this one, since I don't use them as often. I probably could use the practice with them more as well, and I think a lot more people have the dotting tools rather than using brushes, so I think I will go with these for this entire piece, or try to anyway. Alright, so I'm still using the chocolate. I just really want to get a good solid dark center. And I'm using the largest dotting stylus that I have, which I would say maybe is about a 3mm ball on the end of the stylus. Okay, I have the Decoart Extreme Sheen Metallic Paints, and this one is bronze. And I'm going to just kind of offset the dark with a little bit lighter bronze, but still we're kind of in that brown, sand, dirt, earth element range. Okay, so I have a little bit of burnt umber. And we're just going to go above the chocolate with the burnt umber, just 2 dots. Actually, I'm going to do 3 dots. Just bear with me. I'm trying to keep the idea of doing petals, since it's, you know, the flower of life, the seed of life is kind of like a flower. Start off from the center. And then 3 here. And I forgot one there. Okay, so I'm just going to wait for that round to dry before I do 3 more in a milk chocolate. Milk chocolate? Yeah, milk chocolate. Okay, so now the milk chocolate. I think I can fit 3 because I'm going with a smaller tool. So I'm starting at the top and then just working my way down around the darker umber that we had used. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'm gonna do 1 more row of the small dots, just with a lighter brown still, the honey brown. I'm still only gonna do 3 dots down the side because I want it to stay thinner, like it's a flower petal. I just don't want it to get too stocky. And I'm still using the smallest dotting tool that I have. And this also, going from dark to light, gives it that ombre progression also. That looks pretty neat. Okay, now at the end of each of these, I think I'm going to do a... Should I stick with the chocolate? No, I think I'm actually going to move on and go to copper. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the larger dotting stylus for this one because I want them to be fairly large copper dots. Okay, so now I'm just kind of debating in my mind because I want to start to transition into kind of the grass green. You know, you're going from ground with the seed out to green where things are growing. And then I'm thinking sky, so probably metallic browns into our greens and then blues. I think that's going to look really nice. So I'm debating where I want to start that transition. And I think I'm going to start it here because then that's going to give us kind of the encapsulation here with the greens. So I have this Dazzling Metallics Crystal Green. And I'm going to do that in small dots here, just around to kind of create the circle around here. Okay, so I'm kind of doing a progression from large to small, but I'm starting in the center of the line where the largest dot would be because you have the most paint on your tool, and then working my way out towards the copper dot. And then that gives it kind of a different design look to it because you're thicker in the center, and then out towards the sides it gets kind of dainty. I don't know if people even say that anymore, but I like that word. Dainty fits it perfectly. More delicate, I guess that's another way you could put it. And one of the great things about the metallics too is they get dry faster around the edges, and you kind of have less of a worry of bleeding into one another, so you can work a little bit faster. I don't know about you, but I kind of get excited about finishing a piece. Can't wait to see what it looks like in the end. I sometimes even watch my sped up videos just because I think it's so neat to see the creation from start to finish, bam, in a minute. I mean, I enjoy the journey of this, don't get me wrong, but sometimes it's just very fulfilling and satisfying to see, oh, it's a blank canvas, and then, wow, it's filled. And sometimes with a totally unexpected design or color scheme, and it's just amazing. Especially the dotting, it's so deliberate, you know, you're doing such a deliberate placement of something as opposed to the abstract. I mean, I love watching fluid painting and the acrylic pours as well, because I just started getting into those, but I think there's something just amazing about finishing a dotting piece. Okay, and for the bottom section, I'm going to go back to the raw umber, I think, because then we kind of have the contrast against the, what was the lighter color that we used? Honey brown. So you have that contrast about, pardon me, against the honey brown as the last one that we did at the top of the petals. And also then you're going to here, you have the dark brown and the green against one another. So kind of where the land meets the growth. Plus, if you did any other lighter browns, it would just blend in here and you wouldn't see that we have it shaped like a petal. I think I must have Halloween in my brain too, because I'm thinking we could have turned this into spider webs as well. I also just watched the latest episode of Doctor Who and it was all about spiders, so I probably have that in my brain a little bit, all the webs. Okay, I think I'm gonna go with the metallic green, the crystal green again, but I'm only gonna do 3 of these in the green, and then I'll do the other 3 in blue. So green. So then I have this metallic ice blue. I'm going to use that for the other 3 dots. This is the interesting part about a stencil as well, is you can work on different parts of the piece. Generally, to keep my symmetry, I have to start in the center, and then I work my way out, filling in the space as I go enough to keep the symmetry and alignment. But this way, with the stencil, you can kind of place things even in the outer realm of your design and still keep your symmetry because you have the guidelines. Okay, I'm back with the crystal green again. I think I'm gonna swipe. That's not what I wanted to do with that one. So this is going to be a little fix-it spot here. I wanted that one to be blue. I'm just going to take up as much paint as I possibly can of the green, not the copper. So I got lazy and didn't grab another brush. And then I'm just going to go back over it with my black background to fix that. Okay, I'm going to let that dry while I move around to the spots that I meant to do in green. I have a little bit too much on there, so I'm just dropping it off on another section of the canvas because I had too much on there. And you'll get a kind of feel the more you do this of how much paint you need on your brush or your tool that you're using. Did I just do it again? Yes, I did. I think it's time for me to turn into something and start fresh in the morning. So I'm just going to scrape this just like I did the other one. Just to get all the paint off of it. Okay, and then I'm just going to go back over it with black. And this isn't a paintbrush, this is just a silicone tool. But I just needed something to put the black down on the canvas here. Alright. Oh, okay, I think I'm going to soldier on for a little bit here. just so that I don't waste paint by leaving it in my palette for the night. Alright, pay attention, Miranda. So I'm kind of excited because in my mind this looks like I wanted it to, like little sprouts coming up. Alright, so last night I was having some issues and just needed to take a break, which happens to the best of us. So tonight I'm back, got a cup of coffee, ready to go. So last night we finished up these, and now I think I have a clearer plan on how I want to do this, in my mind anyway, as usual. Like before, I said I'm going to try to stick to the dotting tools for this one throughout the whole piece, just so you can see how to do each element using styluses. Alright, so now I have some rich espresso, which is a little bit more, I don't know, sparkly, I guess, than the chocolate. Maybe it's a lighter shade, actually, so the chocolate is a little bit darker. Let me show here. You can see it's got a little more copper reflections in it too, but this is the rich espresso. And these are just the Decoart metallics, and the one that was chocolate is a multi-surface. So they have a different label on them. Alright, so refocus here. Now, I was saying how I want this to kind of look like the transition from ground to grass to sky. So I'm going to put a little bit more here of the rich espresso being one of the land colors. Trying to remember what tool I used last night to create these swipes, because I want to generate the same type, about the same size with the rich espresso. And again, I'm using this stencil from Zendati. We're just kind of dragging those down. I apologize, but at the moment I don't have a camera set up that allows me to spin my art in an easy way. The zoom on my camera is not the greatest, so I need to have the camera fairly close, so I have a stand like right here. So I can't spin the canvas very easily because I'm hitting the stand. But that will be a future investment, definitely. Ooh, I'm kind of loving this. You know, if you've never done a design before in your head, too, I don't know if this happens to anyone else, but you get an idea of how you think it's gonna look. And it doesn't always turn out the way you think it's gonna look, which is great, too. Sometimes it's really nice to be pleasantly surprised. There. So I just dragged the rich espresso down to the copper. Alright, so now, seeing as this is the sky, I think I'm going to alternate between the blues and some white to kind of give it that blue sky / cloud idea. I'm just looking for my pearl, my white pearl here, because that's always a fun one to do for a metallic in the whites. Okay, So I'm going to do the white next to the greens. No, I was going to keep the blues, but maybe I'll do the white next to the blue and the blue next to the green, and that way we're tying them into one another. It works in my mind, hey. Alright, so don't mess it up this time, Miranda. White with the blue. See, I even have to say it out loud to remind myself. See, and I hit the stand, sorry. And I'm just dragging it out. And if it doesn't quite reach, I just double dip in the drag. And if you think it's not going to be enough paint to reach, you can always double dip in your paint and add on to it a little more here. And this way too, I'm kind of extending, pardon me, where the stencil lines initially had gone. There were separations, but with using the dot drag, it's actually connecting the lines that had separations in them. Alright, since I used the white with the blue, I'm going to go with the icy blue metallic and go next to the greens with those. The same thing, the same idea that we just did with the whites, we're doing with the blue, only next to the green. So this way you're just tying all the colors, the earth, the grass, the sky and the clouds, everything, the wind, all into one piece. Alright, so I'm looking a little bit like this. Okay, I'm going to go with a sour apple green. And we're going to put some large dots here to start our sprout area. And I'm just using one of the lighter, brighter greens because the dark emerald metallic that we have just needs some contrast there, in my opinion. Okay, so I'm going to take the smallest dotting tool and I'm going to start some dots around with the same sour apple color. Let's go 2 rounds. And I'm just stealing it from the large dot that I already have down. And then you're not wasting time back and forth to the palette. You don't have to do that, it's just a personal choice. I only get so many hours to paint it all a week, so I gotta save time where I can, right? Okay, the next round around the sour apple, I'm going to use a festive green. And I think I'll do 2 rounds of that one as well. Okay, so the next thing I want to use is the ocean green from the Crafters acrylic line. And we're going to do a couple rounds. I think we can fit 2 in with that. Yep, I can. Barely. Alright, down and around with the ocean green. And don't panic if you have, you know, a different amount of dots on one side than the other. Ultimately it blends into the design, and unless somebody really just goes counting your dots, no one's gonna really notice, because the overall design comes out so nice when you're finished. I really like this ombre effect too, when you start to do the same color just in a variation from light to dark or dark to light. I'm moving over to this one because this one's going to be a little cramped, so I want to wait until it dries a little bit. Just so you know what I'm thinking here. Alright, I think do I chance it? No, I don't want them to bleed into one another because it is a little crowded here, so I'm going to pretend to put a dot there. And I'm going to move down around the sides first. You don't actually have to go through the motion of pretending. For me, it just kind of helps the rhythm. Pretend, and then your spacing. Alright, so continuing on with the metallics, but also this teal peacock pearl kind of encompasses the blue mixed with white, so I'm going to use that on all these sections here to do something a little different, and we'll see how it comes out. I have my black background in case it doesn't, so I can always fall back on fixing it if it's not exactly what I was looking for. But okay. So I'm getting a fairly good amount because I'm gonna double drag. A little bit easier with a paintbrush, but I'm going to try to double drag out of this dot here, around on either side. I'm just taking paint from my extra large dot and just kind of, whew, yeah, I can talk. Maybe I need more coffee tonight. Bubbling out the design and pulling it out to just make a couple loops on either side just to set a base for something here. So these ones are going to take a little bit longer to dry, but that's okay. I like the 3D effect they get, and plus the metallics get a little skin on top like pudding, so they dry a little quicker to the outside. Even if they're not thoroughly dried all the way through, they're dry enough that we can continue to work on the piece. And I didn't get enough on that. So this is just kind of when you're playing around with designs too. I mean, next time you can go back and do it without this element if I got to a point where I was like, well, I don't really like that design element, which is fine. Or I could go back and scrape all these off and paint over them with black. But I kind of like them. And each thing on a mandala too, if you just kind of can make it your own by adding different design elements to it, by saying, oh, you know, I'm going to put a triangle here. Well, if you put a triangle here, then you put one at every other place to keep your kind of cohesive symmetry going with the whole piece. And then each layer out that I work, I always have other things that pop into my head. Oh, I could do this or I could do that. So sometimes I have to limit myself, but it just gives you options too to create a totally different mandala than you've ever created or that anyone else has created. Just add just different little things to it and really make it your own unique piece. So this I kind of had in mind because I was playing around with that S curl that I enjoy doing, and I was thinking it would look great as a base for the S curl. So that is my plan, I think, as I move out more. There's still some things I would like to add in here, but going forward, that's in my mind for part of the plan. So also I'm debating whether or not what to do with these opposites of the triangle that I've done kind of here. And do I want to go back and fill it in with the lighter greens? I'm debating yes to that. And do what I did here with these ones all the way around. Or I might go complete opposite and go dark to light. Like I said, I don't want to get too crazy. Start doing too many different things, then yeah, I might get a little overwhelmed. I think I am going to go dark to light. But rather than take the metallic green, the crystal green that we used, I'm going to start with the ocean green for my large dot there. Go with the largest dotting stylus that I have, and I'm going to put it right in there. And then, like we did with the other one, I'm just going to pull the color from the ocean green dot, bring it around. I'll do 2 rows of that as well. And then we'll do our ombre progression backwards on these so that we're starting dark and go to light. Thing about working too around so many pieces of the canvas, so you just have to be careful you don't drag your hand through pieces that are wet, parts that are wet on the canvas. Especially like those gigantic, nice full peacock pearl dots that we did. That'd be a lot of paint to drag around. Make a huge mess. It's another reason to spin a canvas or spin your piece. And this way too, I don't know if you can see, but there's still the guidelines of the stencil here, so you can kind of stay within the guidelines, even though I didn't do the typical flower petal points that everyone does for the seed of life type idea, but you can still use them as your guide. It's like I said from the beginning, there's so many different ways to use a stencil. It just depends how you incorporate it as a tool into your piece. I'm picking at paint. Okay, sorry. So then the next one we used was the festive green. So we're going to use that next after our ocean green. And that one was one of the Americanas, the festive green. And I think too, since I got so much great feedback from you all saying that you enjoy the longer videos and taking the time to paint with me and do the longer, slower type pieces, then it'll make it easier for me to go ahead and do larger pieces like a canvas like this. So I'm not as concerned with it running over time. I feel like in the past I was feeling a little stressed in the back of my mind about sticking to a time because I see those crazy analytics telling me, you know, people only watch 6 minutes of your video, which is fine too. If that's how people can do it and fast forward through, then that's fine too. I'm not confining you here to be stuck with me for an hour, hour and a half, however long it takes. That being said, though, I have been figuring out how to do the live feature on YouTube so that possibly in the near future we could do a dot along live together. I know the lovely Maria Clark is already doing this, and she's been kind of my mini mentor for that. Her and I are just speaking about a collaboration of sorts for Christmas holiday. I hope she doesn't mind that I just leaked out that we were gonna possibly do that. Hopefully it'll come to fruition. But anyway, she's been great, and her husband, they've worked out the details of how to incorporate us both live at the same time. So we will see how that goes too. We're in the designing process now, but like I said, hopefully we will be able to incorporate that, get it going soon. But just as far as my own channel, I would love to just dot along with you guys live and be able to try to answer questions at the same time, and we'll see. Remember I said I can't chew gum and walk, so we'll have to see how that goes, painting, talking, and answering questions. Alright, so ocean green, festive green, sour apple, where are you? Sour apple. Alright. So I know I was thinking as I was doing this, I said earlier to make sure that whatever you do to one part, to do to all of them, you can fit it in each space, but also I didn't do that on these ones. I did a triple, just the 3. So you can change it up in that regard as well to give another different design idea to your mandala. and go a totally different direction rather than, oh, I'm doing pinks all the way around and then blue and then, you know, well, this way we're doing light greens first, then dark greens. So like I said, you can change it up constantly. Like I could probably do this mandala 50 times and do it different every single time. And no, it's not just me. I hear some of you saying that in my mind. Oh, that's just you, Miranda. Our brains don't work that way. Yes, they can work that way. You just kind of have to push yourself to think outside the box of, I only want to use these colors, or I only want to use dots, or I only want to do this design, because then you're just confining yourself. But you can do it. Just push yourself outside the box. Even just your basic shape ideas. You know, add a triangle next time. Add a letter. You know, you're making something for a family friend and their name starts with M's. To put some M's. I don't know. That's Miranda. I just thought it in my head. My son is Giuseppe and we call him Seppi, which quite frankly, that's why the S was stuck in my brain. And then out pops an S curl, you know. It's just how it happens sometimes. Relate it to things in your life and things you find beauty in, or things that are on your mind. Lately, Elmo's been on my mind, so I hope that doesn't creep in. But, you know, red is my favorite color, so I could always just throw some red somewhere and just draw from what you know. And if you don't like it that time, you know, practice on rocks. They're free for most of us. Or pieces of index card, you know, practice a design. I actually just did this drag idea on here. Actually, that looks like a little octopus now. Upside down. Now that I'm looking at it, a bunch of little octopi. But, you know, you could do under the sea type idea with that element. So there's so many different ways you can go with each little thing. Just don't confine yourself and be free on your journey. Just gonna make that one a little bigger because I plopped on that one next to it. Okay. So, see how it makes a nice transition and a little different dimension going with light to dark. It's just something fun and different. Alright, so I have the remnant here of a little. Alright, so I left for a little bit and came back to this and now I forgot where I was. So I think I was going to start drawing in some of the S's. Yeah, I think that's my plan. So I'm just going to sketch these in and make sure I get them all even all the way around. Okay, so I'm thinking as I'm doing this that I should probably show you all. I'm using the Stencil guideline as my guideline so I can kind of keep the S's all the same size all the way around. So I'm starting off at the stencil line and then just going up about, I don't know, just under half an inch on each one. And then I can kind of tweak them as I go, depending on how they look after I get them all sketched on here. Okay, gonna go with some titanium white for all those S's. It's a nice bright white. And something like this S design too kind of helps if you're looking to try to do some negative space. This kind of makes you have to leave negative space, unless you're extremely skilled with filling in the small area, which I tend to be lazy and not want to do. Oh, I kind of like the negative space. I'm just kidding. I think it's amazing too when people fill an entire piece completely with the dots. It's just gorgeous. And we all know how much work and effort goes into that. It's the gigantic labor of love. As I'm looking at this too, you could even use this double dot drag to kind of have it be the base of sprouting a flower. So my brain just constantly, every time I look at things like that, what can I do with that? What can I do with it? I did one double dot drag thing for a while where they went opposite directions. And I absolutely never realized until somebody pointed it out that it looked like the symbol for, I think it's hurricanes and the weather. But it never even occurred to me that that was what it looked like. But it's so funny how our brains all work differently and remember different things and associate different things, but it just becomes, like I was saying, you pull from your life, pull from what you know, pull from your brain, and apparently I pulled the symbol for a hurricane out of my head. Unintentionally, of course, but I mean, that could even help you when you're naming your pieces. I know a lot of people, including me, have difficulty when they want to name a piece that they've created. You know, you could use all the different words that come along with synonymous with a hurricane if you were using a design like that. I really have a love of languages, so sometimes I try to incorporate just even colors from other languages into my pieces. I did one that had a lot of greens in it, and so I chose Verde as the title of it, and Verde in Spanish is green, so I just like to do different names like that and incorporate things that I enjoy. When I was in the Air Force, I was a Korean linguist, and I did not know Korean going in initially, but that was the language they chose for me to learn, so I learned Korean. And unfortunately, it's a you don't use it type thing all the time, so a lot of it too was tailored for the military, so I was listening in on radio signals, and you translate Korean, but a lot of it is military words like soldiers, and or they have code words for things, so It was really amazing to learn, though. We learned from a lot of native speakers and then also military people that had learned the language ahead of us that came back to teach also. So it was nice. We got to eat Korean food. It was like a total immersion type program without actually going to the country. So probably at this point I can ask, where is the bathroom? Or is it okay if I go to the restroom? All right. So there's my S's in there. Okay. Now I really like that ice blue, so I'm actually going to bring it out through our design here with two larger dots on either either side of the top of our S, and go with one of the larger dotting tools to do that. All right, so the dark icy blue up here on either side of our S at the top. And see, this is a thing too, sometimes without guidelines, I don't usually jump to the outer skirts of the design because I want to keep my symmetry, so I would have tried to fill in and made sure I kept it in alignment, but this is helpful for doing that. Plus having the dark next to the white will really help it to stand out with some contrast. Okay, well the outskirts are drying, I think. I've decided to come back in here with some copper. Sometimes there's too much negative space. Plus I really just have an obsession with this copper. I think it's just a gorgeous color. And it goes with so many different color combinations. It's really versatile. All right, let's grab a little bit more and just kind of tripod that out. Okay, I feel like these are kind of fading in to the background, these dark chocolate or metallic chocolate. So I'm going to use some milk chocolate top dots. Just to kind of help it out a little bit. Like that. Okay, so now I have, excuse me, this darker metallic teal. And I'm going to go down the sides, I think, here from our blue dots And I'm just debating whether or not I should do it in dots or a swipe. I think I'm going to do it in dots. Smallish dots. And this is a little thicker paint, so I'm having to dip it more. And plus I kind of want them to stay similar in size until they get closest to the bottom. And then you can kind of let the paint run out. And it's a little bit thicker too. It's actually making a little bit of a string. So you gotta make sure if you have a paint that does that, you have to just pull your tool up higher. It may just be I left these open a little bit and they got dry, and it makes it a little tackier. And I honestly don't know with the metallics. I've never tried to thin them with water. Has anybody ever tried that before? I have used flowing medium to thin them out a little bit, but never the water. I would be interested to know if anybody's had success with that. I'm just following the stencil line down each one of these. This seems like it takes so much longer having to reload it. It's okay though. Gives us some time to just kind of relax and paint as we go. I was speaking with my mother the other day, and she was agreeing with what some of you all have said about my voice being calming. And you know, you have that whole deal where you don't think you sound the same that other people hear. When I hear my voice recorded, I don't find it relaxing, I guess. But she was saying that I could do the mindful meditation and relaxation type things with my photography, do like a slideshow with photography and music, and or speak calmly some poems, which I think is an interesting concept. But I have listened to ones that other people have done, and they are relaxing. Or I'll listen to a book on CD, or even my husband reading to me in the evening. Sometimes I fall asleep to that, so I totally understand how some people's voices can just do that. Either that, or I'm just boring you all to death, and it makes it so much easier to sleep that way. All right, so this is coming along. Okay, I think I kind of want to fill in some of these spaces, and I'm going to combine, I think, the browns and the blues in the space for just a small little area in there. I'm going to go back to, what was the shiny one I used here? I think that might have been the bronze. Yeah, it was the Extreme Sheen Bronze. Oh, that's that one from the Decoart line. And I'm going to put a dot of this in each of those spaces. Here. I want it just a little bit smaller so it's offset a bit. So I'm not putting as much on as we did to make the copper size dots and the greens. And this way you just kind of have some variation with sizes as well. And then I think I'm going to go around this little guy. I think before I had a son, I don't know that I would be calling these little guys. Just in my vocabulary all of a sudden. I'm going to go around these bronze dots with some blues. I'm going to kick it off with some turquoise first, just because that has a little bit of green. And we're kind of in the green zone here still. So that turquoise will help us kind of mitigate this realm from the transition spot here. Plus turquoise goes so awesome with brown metallics and bronze. I guess I'm going to do 2 rows. I just got done saying be careful not to do. I stuck my hand right in it. So, see, it happens to the best of us. So I scraped it off and I just painted in with some of my black background. And I will have to go back over it after that is dry to add those 2 dots back in. But it happens. It's okay. It will be okay. Just want to make sure that this is as flat as possible so that we're not leaving a big chunk here. See, and I even stuck my hand way out here. Geesh, geesh. It might be time to take another break for the night. Alright, actually, while that's drying, I'm going to go for some Island Blue. Which again is from the Crafter's Acrylic realm. I'm going to go around our little turquoise thing here. And I'm doing a larger dot at the top and then smaller ones on down the side to just kind of give it a little bit of a point, kind of an elongated instead of rounded out. And then it'll kind of add in with how we have our swipes here. It'll head in the same direction. Alright, I think that my section that I messed up with my hand is dry enough now that I can just plunk a couple of dots in there and let it dry for the evening. Okay, so I think because I used the festive green and the inner dots of all of these, they're in the center. I'm actually going to take a little bit and bring it out to either side over here and here. And we can do that all the way around. I bet you thought I was going to forget that one, huh? Just making sure you're all staying awake. And you can see that's kind of filling in the mandala design more too. As we go. Alright, and since I still have some of that pearl metallic white wet here on my palette, I am going to toss a little bit on either side of these little guys down here. I don't know why, I just needed to lighten up that space though a little. On either side of our blues. I didn't want to keep going as dark as the browns. But like I said, it's just a feeling. There's no rhyme or reason. I just feel like, hey, I want to lighten that up, and I love this white metallic, and I really only used it on the swipes. Why not use some here? Plus it's offering a really bright contrast to the browns and the blues. Except now I think I'm going to go ahead and put another white at the top of each of these. That pearl, the pearl. Just a little. Yep, I did what I wanted. Okay, so at this point, the video is getting a little long, but I have used up all the space from the stencil. I'm sure I'm going to go ahead with more of this, but then you can at least see here the basic idea of what you can do going off track, off the stencil, using the stencil for guidelines. You don't have to dot just the stencil, and that way it gives you a lot more versatility with each and every stencil you use if you choose to use them, and each and every design element that you choose to throw in. So I hope you enjoyed this. I will probably show the finished piece, pardon me, on my Instagram and Facebook because YouTube doesn't let us do photos. Or you might see it in a future varnishing video. But yeah, thank you to Zendati again for another fun time with a stencil. And I hope all of you enjoyed this. So if you did, please hit the like button and share it with other people who enjoy art. And if you want to comment, please feel free. I know I asked some questions during this that I would love to hear answers to. Or ask me some questions, whatever we want to do with it. So, plus I love just interacting with you all. So, this is Miranda headed out, signing off for the night. I hope you have a great evening and you have a happy time on your painting adventures.